The sun was barely cresting over the rows of perfect, cookie-cutter houses as I wheeled Lily up the driveway to our new home. Her small hands clutched the armrests of her chair, eyes wide with excitement. It had taken me years of saving every extra penny to make this move happen, years of sacrifice to finally give my daughter a safe place to grow up. "It's beautiful, Mommy," Lily whispered, her voice full of awe as she gazed at the two-story house with its white shutters and blooming garden. For the first time in forever, I felt hope. But it didn't last long. As we unloaded the first few boxes from the moving truck, I noticed a woman striding across the street, her high heels clicking like gunshots on the pavement. She was tall, with an immaculate bob haircut and designer sunglasses that seemed to glare at me more than shield her from the sun. In her manicured hand, she carried a clipboard, the universal symbol of HOA authority. "Excuse me," she barked, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. I turned to face her, shielding Lily instinctively with my body. "Yes, this isn't a daycare," she said, her eyes darting down to Lily's wheelchair. "And we have rules about keeping the community presentable. Wheelchairs on the lawn are unsightly." My jaw dropped. "She's my daughter," I said firmly, my voice shaking more from anger than fear. "And we just bought this house." The woman, Karen, as her name tag proudly announced, crossed her arms, lips curling into a sneer. "Well, if she can't walk, maybe this isn't the right place for her. This community has standards." I felt the heat rise in my chest, my fists clenching. But Lily's small voice cut through my rage. "Mommy, did we do something wrong?" she asked, her big brown eyes peeking up at me. "No, baby," I said, kneeling to her level. "We belong here as much as anyone." But as I held her close, I saw Karen smirking over my shoulder, her eyes cold and calculating. I didn't know it yet, but this wasn't the end of her hostility, it was only the beginning. The first few days in the new house were a mix of exhaustion and quiet joy. Lily loved exploring her new room, decorating it with her drawings and little figurines she had collected over the years. I told myself that Karen's cruel words on the first day were just the rantings of an unhappy woman. Maybe she'd forget us and move on. But that illusion shattered on the third morning. As I opened the front door to fetch the mail, a folded note fluttered to the ground. My stomach tightened as I bent to pick it up. Scrawled in thick black marker were the words, "Remove the eyesore or we'll do it for you." My hands shook as I crumpled the paper. I spun around instinctively, scanning the pristine street lined with identical houses. Behind curtained windows, I thought I saw movement, shapes darting away as though they were watching. I didn't tell Lily about the note. She was sitting in the living room, humming softly while coloring in her notebook. She didn't need to know how cruel the world could be, not yet. But as the day wore on, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling crawling up my spine. Karen was out again, standing across the street with 2 HOA board members. They spoke in hushed tones, glancing at our house every so often. When I rolled Lily outside in her chair to enjoy the sunlight, I felt their eyes burning into us like lasers. Karen didn't even try to hide her smirk. That evening, I called the HOA president to report what was happening. His voice was clipped and dismissive. "I'm sure you're just misunderstanding Karen. She's passionate about the community's standards. Maybe you can try to work with her instead of against her." "Work with her?" I repeated, stunned. "She's harassing us." Someone left a threatening note on my door. There was a long pause. Then the man sighed. "We'll look into it. But understand, our rules are strict for a reason." As I hung up, my blood boiled. Rules? Since when did rules justify terrorizing a child? I peered out the window at Lily, who was laughing as she chased bubbles in the front yard. My heart ached. Karen's venom wasn't just directed at me, it was aimed at my daughter. And though I didn't know how far Karen would go, deep down, a sick fear twisted in my gut. This wasn't going to stop. It started with the smell of smoke. At first, in my half-asleep haze, I thought I was dreaming. But then I heard the faint crackle of fire and Lily's terrified scream from across the hall. My eyes snapped open, and I bolted upright. "Mommy! Fire!" Her voice cried out high-pitched and panicked. I rushed to the window, and my heart dropped like a stone. Outside, the driveway was bathed in an orange glow. Lily's wheelchair, the one I had spent months saving for, was engulfed in flames, the plastic seat bubbling and melting under the heat. Sparks leapt into the air like angry fireflies as the tires burst with loud pops. "Stay inside," I shouted to Lily, already grabbing the garden hose. I stumbled barefoot across the front yard. Fumbling to turn the spigot, my fingers slick with sweat and fear. A jet of cold water sputtered to life, and I aimed it at the fire, my arms shaking violently. Steam hissed, and the stench of burning rubber filled my lungs as I doused what was left of the chair. That's when I heard it. Slow clapping. I spun around and froze. Karen stood at the edge of her manicured lawn, wrapped in a silk robe, her arms crossed and her smirk illuminated by the flickering firelight. "Maybe if she can't walk, she shouldn't be here," she said, her voice dripping with venom. My blood went cold. "Did you do this?" I yelled, my voice cracking. Karen tilted her head mockingly. "Prove it." Then she turned on her heel and strode back inside her house as if nothing had happened. The police arrived 20 minutes later. They took photos and scribbled notes, but without evidence, they couldn't do much. "Unless you catch her in the act," one officer said sympathetically, "our hands are tied." I stood there shaking as they drove off. Behind me, Lily peeked through the curtains, her big brown eyes shimmering with tears. "Mommy," she whispered, "why does she hate me?" My chest ached as I pulled her into my arms. "She's just a sad, mean person, baby. But I promise you she won't win." But inside, I was terrified. If Karen was willing to burn my daughter's wheelchair, what else was she capable of? I barely slept that night. Every creak of the house sent my heart racing. Every shadow outside made my stomach twist. The next morning, I went to the hardware store and spent what little I had left on a small security camera. I mounted it above the garage, angling it toward the driveway. If Karen tried anything again, I would have proof. 2 nights later, my gamble paid off. At 2:14 a.m., the motion sensor on my phone buzzed. Groggy and disoriented, I grabbed it and tapped the screen, and there she was, Karen, creeping up my driveway in her silk robe, a gaskin clutched in one manicured hand. She looked up and froze when the faint red glow of the camera light reflected in her sunglasses. For a split second, her expression twisted from smugness to panic. The next morning, I called the police. This time, I was ready. When the officers arrived, Karen was already outside, shouting at them. "This is harassment. She's making up stories to turn the neighborhood against me." But when I showed them the footage, the color drained from her face. She stammered as they placed her in handcuffs, her protests growing louder by the second. "I'm on the HOA board. You can't arrest me. I was protecting community standards." The officer gave her a cold look. "You're under arrest for arson and harassment." News of Karen's arrest spread like wildfire. Neighbors peeked through blinds as the once feared HOA queen was marched to a squad car. Within hours, the video hit social media. Outrage poured in from all over the country. By the end of the week, Karen was stripped of her HOA position and faced civil charges. The HOA board, scrambling to save face, issued a public apology. "We regret the actions of a former member and are committed to ensuring all residents feel safe and welcome." But the real surprise came from the community itself. One by one, neighbors stopped by, not with judgment or glares, but with kindness. A man from down the street dropped off a brand new, state-of-the-art wheelchair for Lily. Another offered to install security lights around the house for free. "Mommy," Lily whispered as she rolled across the front lawn in her new chair, sunlight glinting off the polished metal. "We get to stay now, right?" I knelt down beside her and hugged her tight. "Yes, baby. We're not going anywhere." And for the first time in weeks, I believed it.